Hey guys, tonight we journey through brambles and myths, sleepy spells and rewound time, in a world where one enchanted girl and three very different brothers shift the shape of history without even meaning to. You blink up at a starless sky. It's too quiet. The air smells like burnt rosemary and old paper. You're at a christening, not yours. Don't worry, you're just a sleepy observer tonight. But the baby is royalty, swaddled in linen threaded with gold. The whole kingdom's come out to celebrate. Minstrels hum lullabies, nobles sip something dangerously bubbly, and there are just enough petals in the air to make it feel magical. It all seems harmless, until that one guest arrives. She wasn't invited. That's sort of her thing. A ripple of silence washes over the hall. A woman dressed in gray, with cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass, glides in like she owns the timeline. You probably won't survive this party, by the way. Not if you're a peasant standing too close. She speaks a curse, not shouts, not growls, just speaks. It hums in your ears long after the words fade. This baby, she says, will grow into grace and beauty, but one day she'll prick her finger and die. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and the local time right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The hall erupts in gasps. Courtiers faint. Some of them probably just want attention. But before the dust can even settle, another woman, robed in seafoam and moonlight, steps forward. One of the good ones. She softens the curse. Instead of death, it'll be sleep. A deep one. The kind where the years slide past like waves over a rock. The baby's mother stares down at her daughter, her lips trembling. Historians still argue whether this moment marks the true beginning of the Sleeping Beauty myth, or if the tale was retrofitted centuries later to match some local folklore. Either way, the story spreads like spilled ink across Europe's parchment maps. You grow up beside the girl, sort of. Not literally. You're the narrative ghost tonight. But you watch her toddle through palace halls. You hear the rustle of stiff dresses and the way her feet slap against mosaic floors. No spindles allowed within miles of the castle now. Every spinning wheel burned, which, by the way, caused a minor textile crisis and at least one local rebellion involving angry shepherds and very underdressed nobles. Still, she grows up with golden hair and eyes the color of storm clouds about to be interesting. Tutors adore her. Servants whisper about her strange, sleepwalking, stargazing habit. She walks out into the gardens at night and speaks to frogs like they owe her answers. One winter morning, she disappears. Not gone exactly, just out of reach. Her breath still fogs a mirror. Her heart still beats slowly. But she doesn't wake. And the castle she lies in folds itself into thorn and fog like it's ashamed to be remembered. The surrounding kingdom forgets her. Forgets itself a little too. Whole maps quietly erase a region. Elsewhere, history keeps moving. The 100 Years' War is in full awkward swing, with France and England bickering like cousins at a ruined wedding. Monks scribble copies of Aristotle while slipping cheeky commentary in the margins. One of them, apparently, doodles a sleeping princess beside a dragon that's suspiciously labeled tax structure. But now, let's sneak away from the sleeping girl for a bit. There are 3 boys, born around this time, one in a misty fishing town, one in a crumbling monastery, and one in a merchant city famous for losing its census records every 10 years. The first is the dreamer. He listens more than he speaks. He sees too much. You meet him lying on a flat roof, watching the stars pretend they know what they're doing. His mother calls him lazy. His father thinks he'll be a carpenter. But this boy collects stories like shiny rocks. He draws mazes in the dirt and tries to map out people's choices. The second is the scholar. He's already taller than everyone in his class, and he smells like candle wax and dry parchment. He was meant to take holy orders, but he's more interested in how people lie to themselves in the footnotes of history. He once snuck into the bishop's library just to read a banned book about sleeping enchantments and lunar calendars. The third is the thief. He's grinning while being chased through a market, juggling 3 apples and a silver spoon. Not malicious, just allergic to boredom. He once stole a magistrate's slippers and returned them embroidered with fish. The local guild keeps trying to recruit him, but he doesn't trust anyone with matching cloaks. Each boy, in his own way, hears rumors about a sleeping girl. Not from books, not directly. Through overheard songs, half-mumbled stories by firesides, or scrawled notes in the margins of forgotten codices. It sounds absurd, like a bedtime story no one really believes. Still, something itches under their skin. Somewhere in a palace, sealed by brambles and time, sleeping beauty dreams. Not soft dreams either. Hers are full of cities on fire, and queens who speak backwards, and crows that correct her grammar. You wouldn't sleep well either if the weight of a curse had tied knots in your spine. One of those dreams flickers toward you tonight. Just for a moment. You see a tower with no doors, a clock with only a minute hand, and a boy with 3 shadows. A crow lands beside you and mutters, "She's not waiting. She's remembering." You blink. You're back at the party. The cursed one sleeps. But the world, it's just waking up to her. Thorns creep slow, not like ivy. No, these are patient, coiled things. You watch them stretch over stone and lace themselves around window frames, curling inward as though the castle is something they mean to keep forever. And the world outside shrugs. At first, there's panic. Search parties with loud boots and louder flags. Kings write letters. Queens send prayers. But after a while, people forget. The castle vanishes from maps, its roads swallowed by time and moss. A few merchants mutter about the sleeping valley, but no one goes near it without losing a boot or a memory. You wander with the years now, floating through the smoke of shifting empires. It's the 14th century. Nobody's having a good time. Famine, plague, war. It's a miracle anyone remembers to invent anything, but somehow they do. Eyeglasses appear. The mechanical clock starts ticking in town squares. And somewhere near Prague, someone tries to turn lead into gold and accidentally sets their beard on fire. But let's check back in on her, shall we? Sleeping Beauty, still motionless in her rose-hung chamber. If you listen close, her breath is timed perfectly with the rustling of the thorns outside. It's as if the forest inhales when she exhales. Magic doesn't always glow or sparkle. Sometimes it settles into the cracks and becomes habit. The fairy who softened the curse? She's long gone. That kind of spell leaves a bruise, even on immortals. Some say she wandered into the sea. Others claim she turned into a library in northern Italy. Historians still argue whether she even existed at all, or if she was just a metaphor for loopholes and soft endings. But you know better. You were there. Meanwhile, the kingdom that once housed the sleeping girl fragments into rumors. The western province turns into a merchant republic with confusing coinage and excellent olives. The eastern region falls under the rule of a duke, whose eyebrows are rumored to move independently from his face. Maps call it the Old Territory, though no one agrees on where it starts. And still, the forest grows. You hear whispers, soldiers who vanish inside it, traveling minstrels who return unable to sing. One monk describes trees that bleed ink when cut. He's promptly locked in a wine cellar for 3 days. Somewhere far from all this, the dreamer turns 12. You find him barefoot, carving nonsense into a driftwood plank. He tells a story about a girl who sleeps because the stars told her to. His village laughs. But later that night, one of the elders dreams of thorns wrapping around their house. They wake up missing a tooth. No one connects the dots, not yet. 200 miles away, the scholar is building a contraption made of gears and candle drippings. He insists it can measure the weight of moonlight. His tutor threatens to throw it out the window, but it mysteriously vanishes before he can. It reappears 2 days later in the tutor's bed, still ticking. The thief, meanwhile, is perfecting his sleight of hand. He lifts purses, hearts, and one time a mayor's wig during a speech. He sells it back later for 3 copper coins and a half-burnt map. The map shows a forest with no name. Years pass. The thorns grow denser. You float through banquet halls where kings toast to victories they didn't win. You hover over plague carts, over lovers scribbling poems in the margins of illuminated manuscripts. You even drift past a nunnery, where an abbess dreams nightly of a girl with her eyes open but nowhere to look. Every few decades, someone stumbles near the sleeping castle. Not many make it back. One woodcutter claims he saw a garden where the bees hummed lullabies in Latin. Another describes a window where a girl sleeps beneath a canopy of dust motes and swears she smiled at him. He drinks heavily after that. You don't blame him. One fringe historian in Florence becomes obsessed with the story. He spends 30 years compiling accounts from across Europe. He notes the recurring symbols, roses, clocks, missing time. He writes that the girl isn't sleeping. She's dreaming things into the world. Then he writes nothing at all for the rest of his life. His final notes are just drawings of thorns and a single word. Remember. Back in the thorn-wrapped castle, the girl still lies still. But something has shifted. A crack in the enchantment, perhaps. You hear it first in the way her eyelashes flutter, then in the sound of her fingers twitching once every 100 days. Magic this old leaks around the edges. Outside, the world keeps wobbling forward. Gunpowder sneaks into battles. The Black Death clears the chessboard. Cities grow dense with noise, disease, invention. Human history accelerates like a tipsy horse on cobblestones. And you? You keep returning to her. Because despite the centuries, the dust, the brambles, she is not forgotten. Not entirely. She lingers in lullabies sung by mothers who don't know why they hum that melody. She haunts paintings of girls with closed eyes and wilting roses. She is the breath in the hush before a bedtime story begins. And as the world spins itself into sharper corners, printing presses, revolutions, coffee shops, somewhere in a trio of hearts, the idea of her begins to glow. The dreamer, now older, now strange, sees her face in his sleep. The scholar discovers a manuscript with no author and a passage describing a throne wrapped in silence. And the thief finds a coin minted by a kingdom that no longer exists, her profile engraved in gold. The threads tug. The world stirs. The curse, once silent, hums a little louder, and beneath it all the girl keeps breathing. The wind shifts. Not just the weather kind, though yes, the clouds have that late winter indecision. This wind is deeper, historical, the kind that rustles through old timelines and whispers, "Ready?" You catch up with the 3 brothers on the same day, not that they know it yet. The sun rises over 3 different rooftops, warming 3 different sets of shoulders. One belongs to a boy half asleep with charcoal stains on his face, a dreamer who never quite comes back from his dreams. The second is hunched over a desk, lips moving soundlessly, tracing ancient phrases while ink creeps up his fingers. The third is already running. Through alleyways, over rooftops, pockets jingling with things he didn't buy. You follow each of them briefly, like flipping through chapters in a forgotten book. Let's start with the dreamer. He's lying in the tall grass on a hillside outside his fog-prone village, staring up at the sky as if it's got secrets it's finally ready to share. His name doesn't matter. You'll forget it anyway. But people call him Quiet, mostly because they can't be bothered to remember the real one. He talks in riddles, has a talent for sketching things he hasn't seen yet, and swears the moon once winked at him. He doesn't sleep well. Not because of nightmares, but because the dreams are too vivid. He wakes with the taste of candle wax or the weight of someone else's memory in his hands. He keeps a journal under his bed, full of symbols that don't match any known language. But lately the dreams have converged on a single figure. A girl asleep in a room full of vines. Sometimes she's whispering in reverse. Sometimes she's fighting her own shadow. Always, she's waiting. He doesn't tell anyone. Who'd believe him? Now spin the compass east. The scholar is pacing in a scriptorium built over crumbling Roman foundations. He's supposed to be helping copy a monastic treatise on dietary sins, but his eyes keep drifting to a scroll he found hidden behind a false panel in the library wall. It's a mess of poetic nonsense, but one phrase jumps out. She will wake when the three align. Historians still argue whether this phrase refers to stars, bloodlines, or a very specific breakfast table arrangement. But the scholar doesn't care. Something in him clicks. He's always loved puzzles. This one smells like prophecy. He starts cross-referencing folklore, Italian, Slavic, Celtic, and realizes the same story keeps appearing under different names. The Sleeping Lady of the Orchard, the Thorned Bride, the Clockless Throne. He starts sketching timelines on scraps of parchment, lines connecting over centuries. A few monks start avoiding him at lunch. He's not even sure what he's chasing. But he knows she's real. He feels it in the same place he used to feel shame for cheating during chess. Then there's the thief. He's in trouble. Again, he's hiding in a wine cellar beneath a merchant's hall, grinning with a bruised lip and a pouch full of silver pins. He's only halfway through counting them when something strange catches his eye. A small box shoved between barrels. It's sealed with a symbol he swears he's seen somewhere before. A rose with eyes for petals. He opens it. Inside is a single coin, warm to the touch despite the cellar chill. One side shows a crowned girl with closed eyes. The other? A clock with no hands. He laughs. Loudly. He thinks it's a joke, some noble's novelty currency. But later that night, as he rolls it between his fingers beside the fire, he sees something shift behind his eyes. A flash of a forest thick with thorns, a castle with windows like open mouths, a girl lying very still in a bed of dust and velvet. He drops the coin, picks it up, keeps it. Not because he believes anything supernatural, just because it feels important, like luck trying to dress up as fate. Across the land, the three boys grow. Not friends, not yet. But history's gears have started to grind in their direction. The dreamer begins carving strange shapes into river rocks and leaving them in places people are likely to trip over. One woman finds one, holds it, and forgets what year it is for 12 minutes. The scholar sneaks into a private archive in a neighboring province and finds a map with a smudged corner. Just forest. Blank. He swears the ink moves when he squints. The thief. He spends a night drinking with a caravan of performers and wakes up wearing a velvet cloak he didn't own before, along with a new scar and a single name echoing in his head. Thornmere. No one else heard it. And here's the kicker. None of them know they were born on the same day. One astrologer, drunk and unpaid, once wrote down the sky's condition during their collective birth. She noted 3 oddities: a backwards comet, a star pulsing in Morse code, whatever that is, and a sharp drop in temperature around midnight, even though it was midsummer. Her notes were dismissed. She later moved to a monastery and invented herbal tea. So yes, it matters. Just not in any way that'll make sense yet. Some fringe scholars speculate the three brothers aren't just connected. They're fragments of the same soul, split across a timeline to fix a riddle older than empires. Others say they're just narrative convenience. You decide. Meanwhile, the world doesn't stop for sleepy magic. Plagues keep sweeping in, and kingdoms keep drafting men who don't come back. Someone in Italy is doodling perspective for the first time. In France, there's a baby born who will grow up to throw a shoe at a pope. Long story. But somewhere just beneath all that noise, the earth holds its breath. The thorns are listening again. And the girl, trapped in timeless dreaming, begins to turn her head slightly on the pillow. Not much, but enough. Time, when you really watch it, doesn't flow. It coils. And just as one loop overlaps another, the dreamer sees the girl blink. Only once. Only in a dream. But still, you're with him in that dream. A corridor lined with mirrors that reflect not his face, but hers. Each reflection shows her in a different age. Child, maiden, queen, crone, dust. And in one, just one, she's looking back. She reaches toward him with a hand wrapped in ivy and mouths something soundless. He wakes up gasping, unsure if it was a warning or a welcome. He draws what he saw, hand trembling, charcoal snapping against parchment. No one in his village understands it, but an old widow says the girl reminds her of a lullaby from her childhood. One that ends with, "When three hearts know her, time unwinds." Again with the threes. A week later, the scholar hears a knock at the monastery gates. It's a traveler, delirious with fever and dressed like he's run through history backward. He collapses before saying more than 3 words. The rose burns. They try to save him, they fail. But tucked in his boot is a tiny paper cube. Unfolded, it's a map, the same forest, the same strange blank where a castle should be. But this one has something new. 3 red dots arranged like an equilateral triangle around the forest's edge. The scholar squints. The dots are labeled in a dialect he recognizes as a form of Old Archaic, dead even before Rome got its first plumbing. He spends 2 sleepless nights decoding the labels. One says seer, another key, the third thief. He drops the candle in his lap. Historians still argue whether this map ever existed. The scholar's records vanish mysteriously decades later, and some say he burned them himself to keep the knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. Others believe the paper simply faded out of existence when its purpose was fulfilled. Personally, you lean toward the dramatic burning option. It just feels more him. Now let's pan to the thief. He's in a town known mostly for 2 things: salt and rumors. A masked stranger offers him a deal: deliver a sealed letter to a contact in the north in exchange for a pouch that seems far too heavy for its size. He agrees, obviously. But halfway through the journey, curiosity wins. He breaks the seal. The letter isn't a message, it's a riddle. One you've heard before. She will wake when the 3 align. The paper catches fire in his hands. Doesn't hurt him. Just vanishes. He tries to joke about it. No one laughs. So he drinks a lot, and forgets to laugh too. That night, he dreams of a castle he's never seen. But he knows which window hides the sleeping girl. He's standing in the thorns, staring up. He hears music but can't find its source. Just when he's about to climb, a voice behind him says, "Not yet." He wakes up with thorns stuck to his boots, real ones, sap and everything. Meanwhile, the dreamer has taken to wandering. He claims he's being pulled somewhere, though he can't say where. One morning, He walks out of the village and simply doesn't return. Days stretch into weeks. No one sees him, though sometimes children say they see a boy drawing on tree trunks with soot and humming lullabies backwards. The scholar finally leaves his monastery after the abbot bans all mention of thorn girls and triangle maps. He packs the scroll, the strange coin he acquired from a trader, and a compass that never points north. Before he goes, he writes one note. If I return, I'll explain everything. If I don't, pray no one else does. No pressure. The thief? He's starting to get spooked. People around him have begun calling him by names he never told them. One woman whispers "seer" into his ear before vanishing into a crowd. A child hands him a rose carved from soapstone and says, "You dropped this." He's never seen it before. Somewhere in a forest too quiet for comfort, the vines begin to change color. Not with the seasons, but in sync with moon phases. They shift from green to silver, then deep violet. You watch as animals start avoiding the glade entirely. Even owls give it a wide berth. You return to the girl, expecting stillness. But her hand is open now, palm up on the blanket. And where there was once only dust, a faint glow pulses at her wrist, like moonlight trapped beneath skin. Magic this old has a schedule, and you're late. Elsewhere, a hunter stumbles upon a path that wasn't there yesterday. He follows it, thinks he sees the edge of a tower through the trees. He tells his wife. She doesn't believe him. The next day, he tries again. The path is gone. All he finds is a single feather made of gold. You sense the brothers, though they still don't know one another, getting closer, pulled by stories, by dreams, by accidents disguised as fate. In a smoky tavern, the thief hears a man muttering about the girl who dreams the world. The scholar follows a hunch to a ruin where a mosaic shows 3 figures standing before a throne tangled in vines. And the dreamer, now thin as bone and wide-eyed with purpose, finds a stone with 3 names etched into it: his, a stranger's, and hers. The castle is no longer sleeping, it's listening. The birds that once flew over its spires now spiral down, confused. The wind tangles its own voice, trying to speak the old names. Somewhere deep in the bramble maze, a door unlocks itself with a creak so slow you feel it more than hear it. And in the distance, thunder that isn't weather. You feel the pieces nearing the board. You'd think the world would notice when a lost castle starts humming under its breath. But no, people are busy. A baker in a town you'll never visit is trying to invent a bread that never goes stale. A queen is losing sleep over a prophecy she doesn't understand. A fisherman swears he caught a silver fish that whispered a warning before leaping back into the water. The world is full of noise, and the thorns, clever things that they are, know how to stay quiet until it's time. The 3 brothers are moving, separately, blindly, but unmistakably, toward convergence. The dreamer reaches the foothills of the forgotten range. Don't bother looking for it on a map. It tends to unmap itself unless you already know where to go. He's following a trail of blackened petals, which make no sense since it's winter, and nothing should be blooming or dying. He sleeps beneath an overhang carved with unfamiliar runes. In the morning, someone has tucked a piece of bread into his bag. No note. Just kindness with crumbs. The scholar is traveling by mule, though the mule has started slowing down every time they get too close to dense forest. Animals know. They always know. He's begun speaking aloud to the coin, asking it questions as if it might answer. And last night, it did. 1 tap? Yes. 2 taps? No. He's not sure it wasn't just nerves or rodents, but he still says thank you after every question, just in case. He keeps seeing things, quick flickers on the edge of his vision. A girl with no mouth. A clock that bleeds. a thorn curling like a question mark. He writes it all down, but doesn't read it twice. Not yet. The thief, meanwhile, has developed a new trick. Whenever he tosses the rose-carved coin in the air, it spins longer than physics should allow, long enough for him to ask a question and hope the universe is eavesdropping. He doesn't tell anyone. They'd think he was going soft. But when he lands in a quiet town where everyone has forgotten their own names, he starts to believe he's part of something bigger than a lucky streak and some cryptic dreams. He finds his own name scrawled on the side of a well, in his own handwriting. He hasn't been here before. He doesn't drink from the well. And so it goes. The dreamer meets an old woman in a stone circle who gives him a lock of silver hair and says, "This belongs to her. She won't remember me, but tell her I tried." She fades before he can ask what she means. The scholar finds an abandoned observatory in the woods, inside which a telescope points not at the stars, but at a single, thorn-covered peak. He spends the night sketching it over and over. In every drawing, the girl is watching from the tallest tower, eyes open, but just barely. The thief steals a compass that doesn't point north. It spins, stutters, and finally settles on a direction no map claims. He follows it, and he stops arguing with the dreams. Somewhere in a quiet valley, the first thorn blooms in front of a human eye. It doesn't fade, it doesn't wilt, it pulses, like a heartbeat. You get the sense that the castle is stirring again, not in some big dramatic shudder, but like someone caught between sleep cycles, half a breath, one eye twitch, the tiniest rustle of silken sheets. Then comes the storm. Not rain, though there's plenty of that, but a storm of memory. It hits all three brothers within a day of each other. They dream the same thing. The girl in the tower, sitting up slowly, her eyes wide but unblinking. Vines crawling through the window as if they want to wrap her up again. A voice echoing from beneath the floor. "You are almost here." The dreamer wakes with scratches on his arms. The scholar finds his journal pages rearranged into a shape that looks suspiciously like a rose. The thief opens his pack to find it full of thorns, dry, brittle, but unmistakably the same ones from his dream. He doesn't scream, but he definitely considers it. Historians still argue whether these visions were orchestrated by the girl herself, by the land around her, or by some ancient system of prophecy long buried beneath human memory. Some say the castle chose them. Others insist they were always going to find it, no matter what. But we know this. The brothers are finally within the same radius. Their paths, like trails of smoke, have begun to intertwine, and something else is watching. Not malevolent, not exactly, but ancient. Curious, tired. You meet it one night in the dreamer's sleep. It doesn't speak, it sings. A tune you recognize and don't. It has too many notes and none at all. It takes the form of a tree, a grandmother, a knife. It looks like regret and smells like lavender. It watches the dreamer with something like pity. Then it shows him a vision of the girl again. But this time, she's surrounded by mirrors. In each one, she's someone different. A tyrant, a child, a shadow, a mother, a monster, and the voice, her voice, says, "Not every version of me is kind." The dreamer doesn't know how to respond. Neither do you. Meanwhile, the scholar and the thief cross paths for the first time. They don't know it yet. They pass each other on a rain-slick bridge in the north. The scholar is muttering about ley lines. The thief is distracted by a bird that looks suspiciously like it has human eyes. They brush shoulders. A bolt of static leaps between them. Both flinch. Neither turns around. But that bridge? It hadn't been there the day before, and behind them, far off in the mountains, the thorn tower pulses once more, this time with visible light. A soft glow, a warning, or maybe a welcome. Only the girl knows for sure. and she's not quite awake yet. You're not imagining it. Time really is curling like smoke around this story now. The three brothers are near to each other, near to the truth, and most dangerously near to waking her up. And though the forest still plays its silence, birds still hush when they pass, and vines seem to recoil slightly as their boots crunch over old leaves. Not out of fear. No. Out of recognition. Let's follow the thief first. He arrives at a market town that doesn't exist on any map. It's known only by whisper and a symbol. A mirror crossed by thorns. There's no sign when he enters, just a soft flicker of déjà vu, and suddenly he's in. Lanterns flicker blue above vendor stalls. Spices shimmer with colors not found in nature. He barters for dried fruits that taste like dreams he's almost forgotten. He stops at a stall run by a boy with white eyes. The boy doesn't blink, but offers a single phrase. The window in the east tower is unlocked. The thief opens his mouth to ask more, but the boy is gone, and the stall is now a bread cart. The merchant behind it swears he's been there all day. The thief buys a loaf just to be polite. Elsewhere, the dreamer has begun to mark his arm with charcoal for each time he sees her. He's at 15 tallies now, always the same girl, always a little closer. Once she whispered his name, his true one, the one he hasn't spoken since childhood. He hasn't told anyone. Some names are too sharp to speak. At night, he sleeps in ruins older than time. He curls beneath broken archways and crumbling sundials. One such place has no shadow during the day, just stillness. He dreams of a door with no handle and wakes with dirt under his fingernails, as if he'd been trying to dig it open. Meanwhile, the scholar finds himself face to face with the impossible. A library. Not a metaphorical one, not a dream. An actual physical library standing in the middle of the forest, its doors open and lined with ivy. No roof. Books stacked without care or logic. Titles written in shifting script that vanishes if you stare too long. He finds one with the girl's name on it. Only one word inside. Soon. He also finds a book on temporal knots and tangles, a beginner's guide, and makes the mistake of reading a few paragraphs out loud. He blacks out for 7 minutes and wakes with a nosebleed and a sudden memory of being kissed by someone he's never met. Still, the most important thing he finds is a map, one unlike the others. It's not a drawing. It's a cube made of thin metal that reshapes when held. Depending on the holder, it reveals different routes. For him, it leads straight toward the tower. So what now? Now, the land reacts. The forest breathes. A road appears for just 3 days. Cobbled, old Roman work, unearthed by something that clearly didn't care how long it had been buried. It runs straight as a needle, carving through woodland like the land itself wants these brothers to arrive. And arrive they do. Not together. Not yet. But one by one, drawn by maps, coins, dreams, curses, and odd encounters with singing owls and women who know too much. They don't meet, not in person, but they see each other. The thief walks through a glade just as the scholar is rounding the other side. The dreamer stands on a hill as one of them passes beneath. They pause. Feel something. That twinge you get when someone you're meant to know walks by, and your soul tries to wave even if your body stays silent. Historians still argue whether this moment was the pivotal one, whether fate twisted the right way or wrong, depending on how you see it. Some believe they should have met then and there, changed everything. Others say the tension needed to build, that a story without delay isn't worth dreaming. We'll never know. What we do know, the thorns recede, just slightly. The outermost layer of bramble, that cruel defense of enchanted sleep, begins to pull back, slowly, like an eyelid twitching in a dream. A breeze passes through the forest that smells like candle wax and old perfume. You're not the only one who notices. The castle's oldest inhabitant, who has not moved in 100 years, shifts. It's not a person. It's not even alive in the way you understand. It is a memory given shape, a caretaker made of lace and shadow, rocking eternally in a chair in the far west wing. It rocks faster now. The dust doesn't settle anymore. It hovers in the air, waiting for something. In the east tower, the girl sighs. You feel it, don't you? She's almost listening. And somewhere beneath the castle, the clock with no hands starts ticking backward. Meanwhile, the thief finds a key. It's shaped like a rosebud and glows faintly when near iron. He pockets it naturally. He's starting to expect strange things. The scholar deciphers the last lines of a lost dialect that translates to, "She guards the world from waking." He doesn't understand it. Not yet. And the dreamer, he stumbles upon a clearing where the air tastes like honey and music plays with no source. He steps into the center and feels it, a pulse beneath his feet. Not a heartbeat, a countdown. Suddenly there's a crack in the sky, only for a moment, like a thunderclap swallowed by the clouds, but all three hear it. They look up, and the stars blink. You realize what's coming. The convergence isn't a prophecy, it's a function, an equation. 3 brothers, 1 sleeping beauty, and a castle that's been holding its breath for a century. The final stretch is near, and the road, once hidden, now gleams like a thread pulled taut across time. You ever get that feeling that something's about to happen? Like the air itself is waiting? That's the forest now. It's thick with hush. Not silence. Hush. The way a theater quiets before the curtain rises, or a house holds still before a child wakes from a long, long nap. All around the sleeping castle, the world is shifting. The dreamer walks first onto the old road. It didn't exist yesterday, but now it's clear as prophecy, laid with mossy stone and etched faintly with symbols that glow a soft blue under moonlight. It smells like dust and roses, which, by the way, is a terrible candle scent, but strangely comforting here. He doesn't hesitate. That's his whole thing. He trusts what he feels, even if it doesn't make sense, especially when it doesn't. Behind him, the thief follows. Not directly, of course. He's smarter than that. Keeps to the shadows? Pretends he's not curious. But every step takes him closer. He started flipping his coin every hour, asking the same question. Will I survive this? So far, it keeps landing on edge. Meanwhile, the scholar is taking notes again. Pages and pages of symbols, sketches, cross-referenced legends, and margins filled with sentences like, "Is she dreaming us?" and "Not all sleeps are innocent." He's begun to believe the girl in the tower is something more than a trapped princess. Maybe she's the lock, maybe she's the key, maybe she's both. The forest doesn't argue. Now let's talk about that castle. It doesn't sit in the world like a normal building. It presses against reality like it's half elsewhere. Some say it was pulled from a different dimension. Others whisper it was built by a god who fell in love with a mortal girl who didn't love him back. Either way, it doesn't age. It remembers. As the brothers approach, it notices. And inside, so does she. Her hand twitches. A single finger curls. It's enough to send ripples through the fabric of her dream. In that dream, she's no longer alone. She sees 3 figures. Blurry, yes, but distinct. One burns, one whispers, and one steals. She reaches towards them, and her voice is a wind. "Who are you supposed to be?" They don't hear her, but they shiver, all 3, at the same moment. It's starting. Remember how you used to play games as a kid where you'd pretend the floor was lava? The castle's kind of like that now, except instead of lava, it's memory, the kind that sticks. Every room holds a moment frozen in time. The dreamer steps through the outer gate and feels a chill down his spine. Not fear, but familiarity. Like he's been here before, in some other life. Maybe 1,000 years ago. Maybe last Tuesday. The gates swing open without a sound. The scholar arrives next. He hesitates. Not out of cowardice. He's just trying to understand. He mutters something about chronological anomalies and magical bleed-through. The door creaks slightly at the sound of his voice. The thief doesn't use the gate. Of course not. He finds a cracked wall and vaults over, landing lightly on the stone path inside. He thinks no one saw him. He's wrong. The castle saw. It likes him. He's the only one who isn't lying to himself. Historians still argue whether the castle was sentient or just enchanted to respond to need. Either way, it begins to open. Rooms that haven't been touched in 100 years unseal. Curtains lift. Dust spirals lazily. A music box somewhere in the east wing begins to play. The brothers don't know they're inside the same place yet, but they're closer than they've ever been. And here's the kicker. They're not alone. The castle isn't empty. Some things never left. Some things weren't invited but stayed anyway. There's a gardener who hasn't blinked in a century. A pair of twins who play hide-and-seek in mirrors. A woman who cries in the chapel, though no one remembers why. And something in the dungeon that still hums lullabies in a language no one speaks anymore. Each brother sees something different. The dreamer passes a painting that turns its eyes toward him. The woman in it smiles just a little. The scholar finds a stairwell that loops. He walks down for 20 minutes and ends up higher than he started. He doesn't question it. He just writes, spatial integrity, compromised. Possibly dream logic. Then he checks his pulse. Still normal. Disappointing. The thief, naturally, finds the treasure room, or what's left of it, empty shelves, cobwebs, and one small, glowing object under glass. A hairpin shaped like a crescent moon. He lifts the case. No traps, no curses, just the sound of something far away unlocking. He pockets it. Somewhere above, a bell chimes once. No one rang it. Outside, the thorns continue to pull back. Not retreating. Welcoming. And the sky begins to cloud. Storms don't come easy here. Not rain, at least. The storm building now is the kind you feel before you see. The kind that tastes like static. The kind that rattles bone. Lightning forks once over the tower. A warning shot. The girl sleeps on. Except, not quite. Her dreams are shifting. Where there was only mist before, there are now roads. Memories. A corridor she's afraid to enter. A cradle she doesn't recognize. A voice that says her name like a question. And in her chest, a flutter. Not fear. Not joy. Something more complicated. The scholar stops at a mural. It shows 3 figures. Blurry, but unmistakable. Each with a different key. One held by a flame. One by a shadow. One by a smile. He looks down at the cube map in his hand. It's stopped changing. Now it just glows. So does the coin in the thief's pocket. So does the mark on the dreamer's arm. The charcoal tallies are now etched into his skin, blackened like burned wood. The castle has made its choice, and in the tower, sleeping beauty exhales softly. The roses around her bed shudder, then bloom. You ever try to sneak up on a dream? It doesn't work. Dreams are slippery things. Try to corner one, and it turns into your 5th grade math teacher asking you to recite pi while you're inexplicably not wearing pants. That's what the castle feels like now, shifting beneath your feet, memories blooming like mildew on the walls, whispers curling around the corners of your mind. But not menacing, not cruel, just waiting. Let's follow the dreamer. He finds a staircase spiraling up through a tower too tall to fit inside the castle. It's an Escher problem with ivy on the railings. Each step he takes echoes twice, once in front of him, once behind. And with every floor he climbs, the air thickens, smells sweeter, hints of lavender, candle wax, something older, something like ink. He keeps going. He doesn't even know why. That's the thing with dreams. They pull you without a map. The scholar, meanwhile, is on a different track. He's discovered a gallery with moving tapestries. They don't just flutter. They change. One moment, it shows a battle with faceless knights. The next, it reveals a girl dancing alone in a field under twin suns. One scene freezes him cold. 3 figures standing over a bed of roses. One of them is him. He rips the tapestry down. Behind it is a door with no knob, just a handprint burned into the wood. And here's the weird part. The print is warm. He places his palm against it. The door clicks open. You probably won't survive this next part if you expect logic to carry you through. But hey, no one ever dreams in perfect syntax. Now, the thief. He's found the ballroom, no dust, no cobwebs. Everything gleams like it's expecting company. The chandelier is made of carved moonstone, and the floor reflects like ice. Music starts. Not from any instrument, just from the room. It plays something slow, aching, full of longing. And that's when he sees them. Dancers. Not alive, not ghosts either. Memories, dozens of figures twirling through the air, faded like old photos. They pay him no mind. But one, just one, pauses. A girl in a silver gown, her face blurred like a forgotten name. She curtsies toward him, and then she speaks. "You're late." He doesn't answer. What do you say to that? Outside, the storm arrives. Not with rain, but pressure. The air bends. Trees lean back. Birds flee. Even the thorns twist inward, exposing more of the castle as if presenting a final act on an ancient stage. In the tower, yes, that tower, Sleeping Beauty's eyes flutter. Not open, not yet, but close. She dreams the brothers now, not as strangers, as stories. The dreamer, her first lullaby, a child she once promised to wait for. The scholar, a book she never finished reading. The thief, the lie she loved best. And somewhere far below, the foundations tremble. There's a room no one's found, a sealed chamber hidden behind time itself. Inside it, a second bed, untouched. A spindle rests on a pedestal beside it, still smeared with ancient blood. The room pulses like a heartbeat. This isn't just a sleep. It never was. It's a spell, a system, a cycle. Historians still argue whether the spell was cast to save her or to save us, whether the girl in the tower was the danger or the defense against something worse. Back upstairs, the scholar opens a drawer filled with feathers. Every color, all labeled in script that flickers. One label reads, "Her wings, clipped at birth." He closes it gently. The dreamer reaches a landing with 3 mirrors. Each shows a different future. One where he opens the tower door and finds her gone. One where she wakes but forgets his name. One where he walks away and the world ends. He touches none of them. He walks past. The thief, no surprise, takes a different route, always sideways, always clever. He slips through a servant's passage lined with old clocks, all stuck at different hours. One chimes 7 times as he passes. That's not ominous at all. He finds a locked door, tries the rosebud key from before. It fits. Beyond the door, a spiral staircase leading up into moonlight. You know what's coming. You feel it even now. 3 brothers. 3 paths, all pointing to her. And she's dreaming faster. In her sleep, she stands on a balcony made of mist, looks out at a world that isn't real, whispers to it, "I know you. You're almost here." She reaches behind her and feels the thorns twitch. Elsewhere in the castle, tapestries unravel, candles reignite, and time does a little hiccup, like reality clearing its throat before the reveal. Let's pause. Breathe. Feel that? That tension in your chest? You're not scared. Not exactly. Just ready, because somewhere in this not quite dream, not quite history, you know what must happen. She must wake. But what that means? Ah, that's the rub. What wakes may not be what slept. But you'll see soon enough. The tower door is near, and the first hand is reaching for the latch. The handle is old. Brass, maybe, or something older, oxidized to a soft green glow that pulses faintly when touched. The dreamer rests his hand on it. Just rests. Not turning, not pushing. Yet. He's still breathing, but it's shallow now, like he doesn't want to wake anything more than he already has. Which is hilarious, considering where he is. The whole castle is awake, and it's watching him like a cat watches a mouse trying to look casual. He glances over his shoulder, half expecting a thunderclap or a lightning bolt for dramatic flair. Nothing. Just silence that hums. Below him, far below, the thief closes in on the same door, but from a different angle. There's always a second way in. He's found a narrow crawl space behind a false bookshelf because of course he has. He slides through like smoke. The scholar? He's 2 rooms behind, trying to translate the inscription etched into the wall outside the tower. It's in a dead dialect of Old Provençal. Lucky for him, he once dated a linguist who specialized in cursed poetry. That relationship ended badly, but hey, practical skills endure. He mutters as he translates, "She is not the dreamer, but the dream." To wake her is to unmake the sleep. That's not ominous at all. He writes it down anyway. Historians still argue whether the inscription was a warning or a promise, whether it referred to the girl or something else that slumbers beneath the castle. But either way, one thing's clear. Someone wanted this moment recorded. Now the dreamer closes his fingers around the handle. The metal is warm. The thief watches from the shadow of a curtain, flipping his coin again. This time it lands on its side, and then vanishes. Yep, that's fine, totally fine. The dreamer turns the handle. The latch gives with a sigh, and the door swings inward. No creak, no rust, just an opening, soft as breath. And there she is. You were expecting a bed? Velvet curtains? Maybe some doves cooing in slow motion? Nah. She's standing, right in the center of the room. Not floating, not glowing, just there. Her hair spills down her back like ink. Her dress shimmers like moonlight filtered through memory. Her eyes are closed, but you can tell. She's not sleeping anymore. She's waiting. The dreamer doesn't move. Just looks. His heart's a metronome now, steady, reverent, afraid. The thief emerges from behind the curtain and mutters, "Took you long enough." The dreamer flinches. The scholar finally catches up, breathless, holding a notebook full of wild scribbles. He skids to a stop at the threshold and sees her, and drops the notebook. She opens her eyes, and the room bends. You know when you wake up from a deep dream, and, for a second, you can't tell if the ceiling is the floor or if your name is still yours? Multiply that by 10. Then add a thunderclap of recognition so intense it steals the breath from your lungs. She sees them, all 3, and she smiles, just slightly. "About time," she whispers. The castle exhales, paintings blink, the bells toll once, 11 times. That's odd. No clock has struck 11 in this place for 100 years. Outside, the storm breaks, not with rain, but light. A soft rain of petals falls from the highest tower, even though there are no petals there. She takes a step forward. The dreamer instinctively steps back. The thief leans in. The scholar writes, "Subject appears lucid, aware of spatial discontinuity." Then he drops the pen because his fingers are shaking. She looks at each of them. "You're not what I expected." The dreamer finally speaks. Neither are you. She laughs. It's not sweet. It's not wicked. It's a sound like splintering ice. Beautiful, but it reminds you how fragile things are. I've been dreaming you, she says. All three of you. The thief folds his arms. Yeah? Us too. She turns to the scholar. You brought the question. He nods slowly. We don't know what happens if we wake you. Her gaze flickers. You already did. And that's when the castle shifts, not physically, not like an earthquake, more like a curtain being drawn back. Suddenly they remember things they shouldn't. The scholar remembers a version of himself who died on these stairs 100 years ago. The thief remembers placing the hairpin in a girl's hair. This girl, and promising to return. The dreamer remembers holding her hand once, under a different sky. Memories slot into place like puzzle pieces forced in by desperate fingers. She sees it on their faces. You're waking too, she says, almost sadly. You don't want to. And that's the truth of it. Some dreams are sweeter than the lives we crawl back to. Historians still debate whether this meeting was fate, accident, or mutual hallucination brought on by enchanted pollen. But either way, they agree. It marked the end of the long sleep. The girl walks to the window. The castle opens around her. Birds return. Sunlight pours through the clouds. The dreamer starts to cry, just a little, without knowing why. She turns and says, We're not done yet. The tower ripples. The walls vanish. And all four of them, yes, 4, she counts herself now, stand on a cliffside that didn't exist a second ago. Below them, a forest unraveling like thread. The world is remaking itself. And they're the architects. You still with me? Good. Because we're nowhere near finished. You stand at the edge of the world. No, literally. One step forward and your foot would hang over nothing. Below is a forest folding in on itself. Trees ungrowing, roots tugging backward into the soil like scared snakes. Whole ridges sink like dough collapsing in the oven. It doesn't look apocalyptic, though. It looks graceful, like a story reversing itself so it can be told again. The girl, Sleeping Beauty, but she never calls herself that, stands perfectly still, hair drifting as if in water. She's watching it all, not panicking, not even surprised. You get the feeling she's done this before. The dreamer is still crying a little, but now out of awe. He's murmuring things under his breath. Names. Maybe prayers. One of them might be yours. The thief, meanwhile, tosses a pebble into the air and watches it freeze mid-fall. It just hovers there like time got distracted. Okay, he says, looking around. We should probably talk about the giant unraveling reality situation. The scholar is scribbling as fast as his hands allow. He keeps pausing to look up, as if trying to catch the edges of a logic he can't quite sketch. She said we woke her, but it wasn't just her. We woke the castle. We woke everything. Bad thing? The thief asks. Historians still argue that, the scholar mutters. The girl, let's call her Aurelia now, that's the name stitched into her neckline, doesn't turn to them, she just speaks. You came because something was ending. All three glance at each other. She's right, of course. None of them had much left. The scholar's life was a string of incomplete theorems and an empty desk. The thief was being hunted by men who used to call him brother, the dreamer. Well, he couldn't even remember what he'd left behind. You didn't come to save me, she says. You came because I'm the place the world forgets to fall apart. And here comes the twist. She turns, finally, and looks at each of them. Her eyes are older than the castle. You want to know what happens next? They nod. She raises her hand, and the forest halts mid-collapse. You ever paused a video and caught a blur between 2 frames? That's what it looks like the world tried to blink but got stuck halfway. She says softly, "I'm not the only one asleep." Then she closes her hand. And all of you fall, not down, inward. Suddenly, you're back in the castle. But not. The walls are fluid, the colors wrong. The floors rise and fall with your breath. It's a memory made physical. The tower you just left is upside down. The ballroom is full of statues of yourselves, dozens, hundreds, each caught mid-step, mid-fall, mid-dream. You're in the second sleep, Aurelia says, walking between the statues. This is where the sleepers go when they've forgotten how to wake. The scholar tries to write. His quill melts into petals. The thief tries to touch one of the statues. It turns into him. Older, tired, smiling. "Cool," he whispers. "Nightmare museum." The dreamer just walks, steady now. He's seen this before, in pieces, in dreams. The girl in silver, the tower that loops back on itself. The door with no latch that only opens when you remember how. Aurelia stops at a fountain in the middle of the dream hall. The water is perfectly still, and the reflection it shows isn't theirs. It's the castle before the sleep. Alive, loud, messy, real. "Someone cast the first spell to stop time," she says, "not just to preserve me, but to hold on to the way the world was, before kingdoms burned, before choices were made, before the brothers betrayed the queen." The brothers, not them, but also, maybe them. Historians still argue whether the tale of the three brothers, founders, usurpers, or protectors, was metaphor or record. Some say they were kings, some say they were keepers of dreams. Aurelia dips a finger into the fountain. The image shatters. Now it shows a map. The castle at the center. 3 roads branching out like veins. One leads through flame, one through fog, one into sky. 3 endings, she says. You each brought one. The dreamer steps toward the path of flame. His memories catch fire as he walks. The home he lost, the vow he broke, the night he fled under a sky that bled meteors. The thief walks the fog. He vanishes halfway through, his voice echoing once. "Tell her I stole this second chance." The scholar hesitates, then turns toward the sky. A staircase appears, made of feathers, notes, forgotten words. He climbs. Aurelia watches them go. Then she turns to you. Yes, you. Because you're not just listening now. You're part of this. You've always been part of this. She smiles gently. You followed the story. But what story did you think it was? You feel it, then. The edges of your dream bending. The whisper of memory you haven't earned. The sound of feathers falling. She lifts a hand. And the world, again, goes still. You are in a story that remembers itself. And it is almost time to wake. You breathe. It feels like the first breath after diving too deep and too long. Sharp, full, almost too much. You blink, but the light isn't from above. It's coming from inside the walls now, seeping through like dawn remembered by stone. Aurelia walks beside you. No footsteps, no sound, just presence. You're still in the dream. Or rather, the second dream, the one that doesn't end when you open your eyes. Most people never get this far, she says. Behind her, the echo of the scholar vanishes into the sky path, each step folding behind him like a story closing its cover. The thief? Fog has already taken him. Maybe he'll find his way back. Maybe he'll become a whisper that pickpockets thoughts. The dreamer's road is fire. He walks through it, steady and unburning, the flame curling around him like memory that finally forgives. And now just you and Aurelia. Well, you and the girl who once was Sleeping Beauty, but now is more like a historian of dreams with a minor in metaphysical loopholes. You follow her down a long corridor where nothing stays the same. The floor is snow, then moss, then glass. The walls flicker with scenes. Her past? Yours? The world's? You're not even sure anymore. One image shows a girl holding a spindle. Her finger trembles above it. Another shows 3 boys, brothers, standing over a map. One draws a sword. One draws a circle. One just turns away. You want to know the truth, she says. You nod. Though, honestly, at this point you'd also settle for a nice nap and maybe a snack that doesn't whisper in Latin when bitten. The curse wasn't the point, Aurelia continues. The sleep wasn't even the punishment. It was the pause, a delay button slapped onto a kingdom crumbling too fast to fix. And now you see it. The curse was collective. She just happened to be the face of it. But the castle, the court, even the world beyond it, all wrapped in the same deep slumber. Historians still argue whether this spell was cast by the queen herself, Aurelia's mother, or by something older, deeper, trying to preserve a time it loved too much to let go. The scholar once called it emotional archaeology, digging into what people felt instead of what they said. And what they felt, collectively, was dread. Aurelia stops before a door. It's not ornate, no gold, no carvings, just wood, smooth, worn by centuries of waiting. There's no handle, just a keyhole shaped like an hourglass tipped sideways. You have the key, she says. You blink. You don't. But then you reach into your pocket, and of course. There it is. Cool, weighty, shaped like time and possibility. No idea how it got there. Maybe it was always there. Maybe it's you. You slide the key in. It fits like an old thought remembered. The door opens, and behind it is not a room. It's a memory. No, the memory. The first time the curse was spoken. You see the queen, her voice low, her hands trembling. She stands before a mirror that shows not her face, but the future. Burning fields, weeping children, 3 brothers at war. She closes her eyes and whispers something. The spell begins, and Aurelia is behind her, watching. She didn't curse me, Aurelia says, standing beside you in the vision. She saved me, and doomed herself. The queen's eyes are wet. Her hands fall. The mirror turns black. She took my fate into herself. The sleep wasn't protection for me, it was escape for her, for everyone. Now that's a plot twist. Historians still debate whether the queen lived on in secret as the tower's ghost, guiding those who dared enter. Others claim she became the castle itself, stone fused with sorrow. You step back from the memory. It closes with a sigh. Aurelia looks tired for the first time. I've waited a long time for someone to walk this far, she says. You shrug. Well, I had nothing else planned tonight. She laughs. Not that sharp laugh from before. This one's quieter, like a candle flickering back into life. She offers you her hand. We're near the last gate, she says. Not the end, just the next part. And you take it. The hall behind you dissolves into mist. Ahead, a spiral staircase of glass rises into the clouds. You climb together. Each step changes beneath you. History, dream, memory, prophecy. A petal-covered battlefield. A child alone with a storybook. A woman dancing under stars that remember her name. Halfway up, Aurelia stops. I don't want to wake alone, she says, not looking at you. You won't, you whisper, surprised at how certain you are. She nods, keeps climbing. And then you're there. The top. A room with no walls, just sky, just wind, and 3 chairs. In one sits the thief. Older now, eyes like secrets wrapped in riddles. In another, the scholar, smiling faintly, holding a book that writes itself as he watches. The dreamer stands beside a 4th chair. He gestures for you to take it. Aurelia sits last. And you all look out. Below, the world, waking, shifting, becoming something new. You remember now? She asks, and, strangely, you do. Maybe not the details, but the shape of it, the truth you forgot when you were born, the part you played in the long sleep. You sit and breathe and wait, because the next moment is coming, and it will be beautiful. You wait. You sit in your chair of wind and glass, suspended above a world you once believed was only a story. Next to you, the dreamer hums a melody that has no beginning. The thief watches clouds shift like secrets. The scholar's pen flickers on and off, as if uncertain whether to record or simply witness. And Aurelia, she doesn't speak, not at first. She just watches the horizon like it owes her an answer. Time has stopped pretending to move forward. It's now more like a carousel, spinning in slow, elegant loops, each revolution a memory dressed in different clothes. Finally, Aurelia stands and says, "It's time to choose." Well, great, because choices are always relaxing and not at all stressful at the top of sky stairs inside a dream, inside a memory, inside a fairy tale. She turns toward you. All this, the sleep, the unraveling, the castle, it wasn't a trap, she explains. It was a question, the same one asked 1,000 different ways across every age. Her voice softens. Do you cling to the past, or step into something uncertain? That's the thing about dreams. They're often built from things you won't let yourself admit when you're awake. You don't just want answers. You want the right answers, preferably ones that come with a good ending and a satisfying moral. But sometimes, all you get is a mirror. You look down, and the world below is changing again. Cities reassembling, rivers reversing, people frozen mid-step, waiting. You're still dreaming, she says, but now you get to decide what dream the world wakes into. Historians still argue whether the final dream state, the apex of Aurelia's spell, was an actual physical transformation of the world or a collective psychic agreement by its inhabitants. Basically, it's either mystical terraforming or one really coordinated group nap. Aurelia gestures, and 3 portals open in the air before you, each one a shimmering veil. She doesn't tell you where they go, but you know. The first one smells like ash and iron and freedom, a world where everything is rebuilt, raw and blazing. People carve their stories in stone. Nothing is easy, but nothing is fake. The second smells like parchment and ink and growing things, a world of memory and knowledge. People rebuild what was lost, carefully, thoughtfully. Some things are kept asleep so they can never break again. The third smells like rain and metal and starlight. A world not of rebuilding but reimagining. Nothing is what it was. People live among cloud towers and whisper languages not yet invented. A future with no maps. Each of you must choose, she says. You glance at the others. The dreamer walks into the first portal. Of course he does. His life has always been fire and trial. He smiles as he steps through and vanishes in a flicker of flame. The scholar hesitates, touching each portal like an old librarian checking spines on a shelf. Then he steps into the second. His world is books, after all, and gardens, and a library that remembers every word you've ever forgotten. The thief. He walks toward the third, but then pauses. Would it be cheating if I came back later? He grins. No, Aurelia says, but the world might not be the same. He nods, salutes, and disappears into rain and starlight. Now you're the last. You don't move, you're not ready, which frankly is the most honest reaction anyone's had all night. Aurelia sits beside you again. Most people think fairy tales are instructions, she murmurs. Follow these steps, get your happy ending. But they're not. They're warnings, maps, mirrors. She looks at you, her expression almost sad. What do you want the world to remember when it wakes? And here's the secret she doesn't say. You can also choose not to choose. You can stay here, in this space between was and will be, between sleeping and waking, a place outside of endings. Historians still debate whether the fourth path was ever meant to exist. They call it the silent continuance, a theory suggesting that some dreamers never woke, and instead became the seams holding reality together, watching from beneath the veil. Maybe that's where you'll go, or maybe you stand, walk toward the portals, and then you turn around, face Aurelia, and say, "Come with me." She looks shocked. And then, something else, something warmer than all the fire, brighter than any spell. No one's ever asked me that before. You shrug, first time for everything. She takes your hand, and together you step forward. But into which portal? That, of course, is the part of the story that always changes. The world reshapes to match the dreamer. And tonight, you're the dreamer. The portal closes behind you. And somewhere, far below, the castle exhales. A garden sprouts where the tower once crumbled. A pond clears its mirror. Children run through corridors that no longer whisper. The curse has ended. Or maybe, finally begun to end. Either way, you're awake now. Or at least, closer than you were. The world you step into doesn't announce itself with trumpets or triumph. It greets you quietly, like morning mist curling around your feet, soft and cool, and entirely unsure whether it should be there at all. You and Aurelia land, if that's the word, in a field. But not just any field. It hums, literally. Low musical vibrations ripple through the grass like the ground is purring beneath you. The sky overhead is a gentle shade of honeyed rose, neither dawn nor dusk, but something deliciously in between. Trees bloom with clocks instead of fruit, not ticking, just blinking, like eyes gently opening and closing. You picked the third portal, didn't you? Aurelia murmurs. You grin sheepishly. She doesn't scold you. She just twirls once in the grass, arms wide. A dream rebuilt from scratch, she whispers. A world where nothing has to be like before. The air here smells of ozone and cardamom. It feels like possibility got tired of being theoretical. The first thing you notice is that your shadow no longer follows you. It skips ahead, stops, looks back like a dog impatient for you to catch up. Aurelia notices too. That's not ominous at all. You walk past glowing stones shaped like teeth, past floating orbs that drift lazily above the path, past trees whose roots dangle upward like upside-down chandeliers. People live here. You see them, but not as you'd expect. One man floats 3 feet off the ground in lotus position, eyes closed, a tiny universe orbiting his head. A group of children paints a giant snail, arguing about what color history should be. An elderly woman with glowing fingertips turns pages of an invisible book, giggling to herself. They're waking up, Aurelia says, but into something new. Historians still argue whether this form of post-curse society ever functioned in the waking world, or if it was the fractured mind of a dreamer who didn't know how to stop imagining. Some call it utopia. Others call it design by exhaustion, what happens when you let every fear and hope shape reality without a filter. Aurelia leads you toward a city, except it's not a city. It's an idea pretending to be one. Buildings shift when you're not looking. Streets rearrange depending on where you mean to go. A map here would be an insult. And at the center, a tower of light. It isn't physical, it pulses, like a thought too big for words. Is that, you begin. Aurelia nods. The heart of the new dream. It used to be the old castle, the one you woke her from. Its bones are still somewhere in there, sleeping beneath all this beauty. You approach. The The tower hums. Closer now, you begin to see faces in the light, flickering like static. People you've never met. People you have. The scholar, the thief, the dreamer, even yourself, flickering past in a dozen expressions. It reflects everyone who stepped into the spell, she says, even those who never woke. At the base of the tower, 3 thrones made of different materials. One of carved memory, one of molten imagination, one of woven silence. They're waiting for rulers, Aurelia says. You blink. Us? She shakes her head. Not rulers. Keepers. Because that's the thing about dreams. They don't need kings. They need gardeners, people to tend them, protect them, let them change. Aurelia takes the throne of memory. You hesitate. But then your shadow leaps into the throne of imagination and waves you over like, hurry up, sleepyhead. And you sit. Silence settles. The city stills. Then, a low tone, like a note struck by an ancient bell no one remembered to forget. The sky ripples. The buildings shimmer into stability. The people pause, then smile. You realize what's happened. The dream isn't the illusion anymore. It is the world. The curse didn't just end. It evolved. And you're part of its rhythm now. Historians still puzzle over whether the dream world became self-sustaining or if it required a constant influx of belief to survive. The current prevailing theory? The sleeping world adapts to the consciousness within it. Neither fantasy nor reality, but a hybrid equilibrium with lucid rules. Which sounds fancy, but really, it just means you're home. You look over. Aurelia's head is resting on her fist, eyes half closed. I could sleep, she says. You smile. Didn't you just wake up? Exactly, she yawns. It's exhausting. You settle into your throne, which isn't really a throne. It's a memory shaped like comfort, a dream made solid. And for the first time you understand, the story was never about breaking the spell. It was about transforming it, letting the sleep become a seed, and waking as something new. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls without sound. You sit quietly in your seat. Not a throne, not really, watching as the light from the tower above bends time in soft, ribbon-like spirals. The sky overhead is darker now, a smoky lavender swirled with gold, like someone spilled twilight onto a painter's palette. Aurelia doesn't speak for a while. You don't either. It's one of those perfect silences, the kind that feels like it was earned. Then she murmurs, "Do you think we made the right choice?" That's a question people have asked themselves for thousands of years, usually right after pushing a button or opening a door they absolutely should not have touched. You offer her a sideways glance. I mean, you reply, considering we're currently inside a sky-swirling dreamscape with sentient furniture and a musical weather pattern. Probably. She snorts. Fair. Below the tower, the city is shifting again, not chaotically, but playfully. A street reshapes itself into a spiral, so a parade of floating turtles can pass. A library unfolds itself like an accordion to make room for a child looking for a book that doesn't yet exist. The people here don't seem surprised. They flow with it, like dancers in a rhythm they trust. Historians still argue whether this living city came from pre-curse blueprints hidden in ancient scrolls, or was instead manifested spontaneously by the collective subconscious of dreamers turned residents. One theory, charmingly called the hiccup hypothesis, suggests the world simply glitched and decided it liked it. Whatever the case, it's beautiful and weird and weirdly beautiful. But not everything is perfect. You start noticing the glitches. A fountain flows backward. A bird sings in Morse code. One house blinks out of existence every 7 seconds, like it's trying to remember where it put itself. Aurelia notices, too. It's stabilizing, she says, but it's still volatile, like the world's trying to decide what kind of story it wants to be. You nod. You've seen enough to understand that even dreams need maintenance, so the two of you leave the tower and walk. Through the city's humming paths, you find something unexpected. Another door. It stands alone. No frame, no walls. Just a door, upright in the middle of an open square, surrounded by curious onlookers. No one dares open it. You, of course, walk straight up and knock. Because sure, why not? It opens before your knuckles make contact. And on the other side, a staircase. Not a floaty one, not a ribbon of light or cascading platform. Just a good old-fashioned stone staircase spiraling down into darkness. Do we trust it? Aurelia asks. You glance back. The city pulses gently. The people laugh. The light of the tower stretches like a yawn across the horizon. I think we owe it to the story, you say, to see what lies underneath. She rolls her eyes but follows you in. The staircase creaks like it's remembering every footstep ever taken on it. You descend, step by step. The air gets cooler, less perfumed, more real. You reach the bottom and find yourself in a room that smells like old ink, dust, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of dragon. Books line the walls, but they don't just sit there. They mutter, whisper, snore. A librarian dozes at a desk carved from a giant piece of driftwood. He doesn't even look up when you enter, just gestures vaguely toward the shelves. You wander. Each book has a symbol instead of a title. One hums when you touch it. Another feels cold, like snow caught in parchment. You finally find one that feels familiar. Aurelia watches you open it. And there, written in ink that shifts color every time you blink, is the story of the Sleeping Beauty. Not the children's version, not the cleaned-up courtly romance, but the raw, weird, tangled thing it really was. A tale of time loops, betrayal, rebirth, and three brothers who each carried a piece of the curse like a second spine. One wanted to destroy it. One wanted to guard it. One wanted to understand it. Do you think the brothers ended up here? You ask. Aurelia turns a page for you. And there they are. The scholar now teaches philosophy through riddles of light. The dreamer grows clouds in gardens on the edge of the city. And the thief? Well, he's built a bakery that sells edible memories and sarcasm-flavored croissants. Everyone finds their place eventually, Aurelia says, closing the book. You nod, then pause, because next to that book is a smaller one. Blank, waiting, and beside it, a quill, no ink bottle, just the feather. You pick it up, the feather hums, and you realize it doesn't need ink, it writes in thought. Aurelia smiles. Looks like it's your turn. You hesitate. Then write the first sentence. Once upon a waking, the quill writes faster than your hand moves. It glides, whispering through the air like it knows what you're going to say before you say it. Maybe it does. This is, after all, the kind of library where books dream back at you. You sit quietly in your seat. Not a throne, not really, watching as the light from the tower above bends time in soft, ribbon-like spirals. The sky overhead is darker now, a smoky lavender swirled with gold, like someone spilled twilight onto a painter's palette. Aurelia doesn't speak for a while. You don't either. It's one of those perfect silences, the kind that feels like it was earned. Then she murmurs, "Do you think we made the right choice?" That's a question people have asked themselves for thousands of years, usually right after pushing a button or opening a door they absolutely should not have touched. You offer her a sideways glance. I mean, you reply, considering we're currently inside a sky-swirling dreamscape with sentient furniture and a musical weather pattern. Probably. She snorts. Fair. Below the tower, the city is shifting again, not chaotically, but playfully. A street reshapes itself into a spiral, so a parade of floating turtles can pass. A library unfolds itself like an accordion to make room for a child looking for a book that doesn't yet exist. The people here don't seem surprised. They flow with it, like dancers in a rhythm they trust. Historians still argue whether this living city came from pre-curse blueprints hidden in ancient scrolls, or was instead manifested spontaneously by the collective subconscious of dreamers turned residents. One theory, charmingly called the hiccup hypothesis, suggests the world simply glitched and decided it liked it. Whatever the case, it's beautiful and weird and weirdly beautiful. But not everything is perfect. You start noticing the glitches. A fountain flows backward. A bird sings in Morse code. One house blinks out of existence every 7 seconds, like it's trying to remember where it put itself. Aurelia notices, too. It's stabilizing, she says, but it's still volatile, like the world's trying to decide what kind of story it wants to be. You nod. You've seen enough to understand that even dreams need maintenance, so the two of you leave the tower and walk. Through the city's humming paths, you find something unexpected. Another door. It stands alone. No frame, no walls. Just a door, upright in the middle of an open square, surrounded by curious onlookers. No one dares open it. You, of course, walk straight up and knock. Because sure, why not? It opens before your knuckles make contact. And on the other side, a staircase. Not a floaty one. Not a ribbon of light or cascading platform. Just a good old-fashioned stone staircase spiraling down into darkness. Do we trust it? Aurelia asks. You glance back. The city pulses gently. The people laugh. The light of the tower stretches like a yawn across the horizon. I think we owe it to the story, you say, to see what lies underneath. She rolls her eyes but follows you in. The staircase creaks like it's remembering every footstep ever taken on it. You descend, step by step. The air gets cooler, less perfumed, more real. You reach the bottom and find yourself in a room that smells like old ink, dust, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of dragon. Books line the walls, but they don't just sit there. They mutter, whisper, snore. A librarian dozes at a desk carved from a giant piece of driftwood. He doesn't even look up when you enter, just gestures vaguely toward the shelves. You wander. Each book has a symbol instead of a title. One hums when you touch it. Another feels cold, like snow caught in parchment. You finally find one that feels familiar. Aurelia watches you open it. And there, written in ink that shifts color every time you blink, is the story of the Sleeping Beauty. Not the children's version, not the cleaned-up courtly romance, but the raw, weird, tangled thing it really was. A tale of time loops, betrayal, rebirth, and 3 brothers who each carried a piece of the curse like a second spine. One wanted to destroy it. One wanted to guard it. One wanted to understand it. Do you think the brothers ended up here? You ask. Aurelia turns a page for you. And there they are. The scholar now teaches philosophy through riddles of light. The dreamer grows clouds in gardens on the edge of the city. And the thief? Well, he's built a bakery that sells edible memories and sarcasm-flavored croissants. Everyone finds their place eventually, Aurelia says, closing the book. You nod, then pause, because next to that book is a smaller one. Blank, waiting, and beside it, a quill, no ink bottle, just the feather. You pick it up, the feather hums, and you realize It doesn't need ink, it writes in thought. Aurelia smiles. Looks like it's your turn. You hesitate. Then write the first sentence. Once upon a waking. The quill writes faster than your hand moves. It glides, whispering through the air like it knows what you're going to say before you say it. Maybe it does. This is, after all, the kind of library where books dream back at you. Your first few lines come out shimmering, flickering between languages you don't speak and ones that haven't been invented yet. Aurelia leans in over your shoulder. Not bad, she says, though your metaphor game needs work. You smirk. Says the girl who once described a flying boat as sky toast. She holds up a finger. Delicious sky toast. You roll your eyes and keep writing. This isn't just a journal or a story. It's a recording. A log of how the spell broke, what rose from it, and who decided to stay. Every detail you trace with the quill becomes part of the new world's foundation, its memory, its defense against forgetting. And slowly a shape forms, a retelling of the curse, not as a disaster but as a beginning. Historians still argue whether these memory books were necessary to stabilize the dream world or simply ritual, artifacts of a species that fears losing its stories more than losing its lives. One theory suggests they serve as metaphysical passwords to the next dimension of consciousness. You're not sure about all that. But as you finish the last line, and when the dream finally understood itself, it smiled. You feel the book hum contentedly in your hands. A small pop sounds behind you. A tiny door has appeared in the far wall. You glance at Aurelia. Oh no, she says. No more doors. You raise a brow. What if it's just a broom closet? It won't be. You know it won't be. But you're already walking toward it, because come on, you don't not open dream doors when they show up. Inside is not a closet, it's a train station, not an ordinary one. This platform floats in a sea of nothing, its tracks made of gleaming threads that stretch into stars. The train isn't here yet, but the timetable posted on the air, yes, on the air, like a holographic to-do list, says, next departure. When you're ready. Aurelia steps in behind you, squinting at the sign. Where does it go? You shrug. Wherever the dream hasn't reached yet. So, expansion? Or exploration? Or danger? You grin. Probably all three. You find 2 empty benches. Sit, wait. People start to gather. Not just strangers, familiar faces. The scholar, now with hair that changes color when he lies. The dreamer, painting stars with her fingers. Even the thief baker, holding a basket of emotional pastries and winking at Aurelia. They're coming too, because this dream isn't done, it's growing. This is something the history books often miss. The aftermath. Most stories end at the victory, the spell broken, the evil vanquished, the people freed. But nobody ever talks about what happens the next morning, when the sun rises over a changed world and someone still has to figure out plumbing and politics and where to find coffee. This dream world? It remembers. And it plans for what comes after. The train begins to arrive, not with noise or steam, but with music. A slow, soothing chord that builds into a harmony of chimes and cello, floating through the air like lullabies with secrets in their mouths. It's made of memory, literally. Panels of old diary entries, seats formed from lullabies and bedtime stories, windows that show your own past instead of the outside world. You step on board. Aurelia sits beside you, and this time she doesn't ask where you're going. She just closes her eyes and smiles. The train pulls away from the platform, silently and smoothly, the thread tracks gleaming ahead like veins of a sleeping god. Outside the window, the world dissolves into dream mist again. And somewhere beyond that mist, new cities wait to be dreamed. New stories wait to be told. Maybe even a few old villains, licking their wounds in the shadows, hoping for a second chance to make mischief. But for now, it's quiet. You rest your head back. The train sings, the dream breathes, and you understand, finally, what this was all building toward. Not a rescue, not a romance, not a rebellion, but a relay. A gentle passing of story from one world to the next. From broken curse to reborn magic. From slumber to something better. You're not a hero anymore. You're a dream keeper, and there's so much more to protect. So now, just breathe. Let that last image linger. You on that train, sliding softly through the stars, wrapped in the kind of quiet that feels like velvet. The world behind you still glows with possibility. The one ahead waits with open arms. No alarms, no deadlines, just soft movement and deep trust in what's next. You're not chasing anything now. Not running from anything either. You're floating in between. And that in-between space? It's sacred. Like that moment between dreaming and waking, where everything is calm and nothing needs to be decided yet. You can just be. Let the rhythm of the tracks slow your heartbeat. Let your shoulders soften, your jaw unclench. Even the muscles you didn't realize were clenched? Let them go now. There's nowhere you